My fingernails were gone. I did not remember losing them. I only saw the raw red meat where the keratin used to be. The shovel handle was slick with sweat and clay. I stood in a hole that was waist deep. The smell of the earth was not fresh. It smelled like fermentation. It smelled like rotting fruit and old bones. Above me, the palm trees cut jagged shapes against the navy blue sky. The air was thick enough to chew. It tasted of burning plastic and durian. I looked up at the rim of the grave I was digging. A pair of heavy boots stood there. I knew who wore them. I did not have to look at his face to know he was smiling. I was 23 years old. I was a CEO of a global dropshipping empire. I was a digital nomad who lived on the cutting edge of the economy. And I was going to die in a muddy pit in Rayong because I liked to watch. It started 3 weeks ago in a glass box in the sky. I was sitting in a co-working space in Thong Lo. The air conditioning was set to Arctic. I drank my 4th cold brew coffee of the morning. I felt like a god. My dashboard showed sales coming in from Ohio and Manchester and Berlin. I was selling cheap plastic kitchen gadgets to people I would never meet. The margins were thin, but the volume was massive. I had more money in my digital wallet than my father made in a decade. I looked around the room. Other digital nomads were hunched over their laptops. They looked tired. They looked desperate. I was not them. I was winning. I needed a break from the grind. I needed to feel something real. The nightlife in Bangkok was loud and bright and transactional. I was bored of the bar girls in their neon bikinis. They were too easy. They were too obvious. I wanted something hidden. I wanted a secret. I found the sanctuary by accident. I was walking down a side street to avoid the traffic. I heard music. It was not the thumping bass of the clubs. It was a chime, a bell, a slow, hypnotic rhythm that pulled me in. I walked through a wooden gate into a garden. It was a dinner theater for tourists, but it felt like a temple. The air smelled of jasmine and incense. That was when I saw her. She was on a small stage. She wore a golden spire on her head. Her face was painted white like a porcelain doll. Her fingers bent backward in impossible curves. She moved like smoke. She was dancing the Ramayana. She was the captured princess. She was pure. She was untouchable. Her name was Dear. I waited for her after the show. I stood by the staff exit like a fanboy. She came out wearing jeans and a t-shirt. She looked younger without the makeup. She looked innocent. She stopped when she saw me. She did not smile like the girls on the street. She looked shy. She looked down at her feet. I approached her. I used my best voice. I told her the dance was beautiful. I told her I had never seen anything like it. She spoke in a whisper. She thanked me. She said she danced to honor her culture. She said she sent the money to her family in the north. It was the standard story. I knew it was a script, but she sold it well. She had eyes that looked like dark pools of water. You could drown in them and not even know you were under. We went for tea, not alcohol. Tea. She poured it for me with 2 hands. She treated me like a visiting dignitary. I talked about my business. I used words like scalability and logistics and vertical integration. I wanted to impress her. I wanted her to know I was not just another backpacker with a debit card. I was a player. She listened. She nodded. She told me I was very smart. She touched my arm. Her hand was cool and dry. She told me she had never met a man like me. She said the other faring men were loud and drunk. She said I was serious. I was a king in her eyes. My ego swelled. I felt 10 feet tall. I told her about my assets. I told her I was independent. I had no boss. I had no schedule. I told her about the life insurance policy my parents had taken out for me. It was a morbid thing to brag about, but I wanted her to know my value. I told her I was worth $1 million if my heart stopped beating. She did not gasp. She did not ask for money. She just looked at me with those dark pool eyes. She told me I should be careful. She told me life was fragile. She sounded like a philosopher. I thought she was worried about me. I was a fool. She was not worrying. She was calculating. We spent every day together. I stopped going to the co-working space. I managed my empire from my phone in her apartment. Her place was small and clean. It had a shrine in the corner with fresh flowers. We ate street food. We walked in the parks. It was the honeymoon phase. The illusion was perfect. But I had an itch, a darkness inside me that the tea in the parks could not satisfy. I was a man who lived through screens. I liked to observe. I liked to be the third person. I told her this one night while we lay in bed. The air conditioner hummed. The city lights bled through the curtains. I told her I wanted to see her with another man. She went stiff. She pulled away. She acted shocked. She told me she was a good girl. She told me she did not do those things. I smoothed it over. I told her it was just a fantasy. I told her I loved her purity. But I pushed a little. I told her it would make me desire her more. I told her it was a test of our trust. 2 days later, she brought it up. We were eating spicy papaya salad. Her lips were red from the chilies. She looked at me. She said she had a cousin. His name was Leck. He was not really a cousin. He was a friend from her village. He was safe. He was family. She said if I really wanted this, she would do it for me. She would do it to make me happy. I felt the rush. The adrenaline spiked in my blood. I agreed. I told her to set it up. Leck came to the apartment the next night. He did not look like a cousin. He looked like a fighter. He was short and wide. His neck was thick. His skin was dark and weathered. He had tattoos of tigers and magic script running down his arms. He did not speak English. He did not smile. He looked at me with flat black eyes. I sat in the chair in the corner. I had a bottle of whiskey. My hands shook as I poured a glass. I watched them. Deer looked like a sacrifice. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Then she looked at Leck. The act began. It was everything I wanted. It was the loss of control. It was the jealousy burning in my gut. It was the feeling of being replaced. I drank the whiskey. I watched my girlfriend with the man who looked like a tank. I felt small. I felt weak. And I loved it. After that night, the dynamic shifted. I was no longer the king. I was the observer. I was the one who paid the bills and sat in the chair. Deer became more demanding. Not with anger, but with need. She told me about her nose. She hated it. She said it was too flat. She said she could not get the good roles in the dance troupe because of her face. She needed surgery. She needed new breasts, too. She said if she looked better, she could charge more for her performances. She could help us build a future. I agreed. I told her I would pay for it. I would pay for everything. I was hooked. I was an addict, and she was the needle. She suggested a trip. She said Bangkok was too stressful before her surgery. She wanted to relax. She wanted to go to her uncle's plantation in Rayong. It was quiet there. We could be alone. Leck would drive us. He was going that way to visit family. I packed my bag. I took my laptop. I took my passport. I took the folder with my insurance papers because I was paranoid about fire in my apartment. It was a fatal mistake. The drive was long. We left the concrete sprawl of the city. We passed factories and warehouses. Then the green took over. The air got heavier. The humidity rose. We turned off the highway onto a dirt road. Red dust kicked up behind the pickup truck. The trees closed in. The plantation was endless. Row after row of fruit trees, mangosteen, durian, rambutan. They stretched for miles. It was a maze of green walls. The sun was setting when we arrived. The shadows were long and sharp. The house was a wooden structure on stilts. It was simple, rustic. There was no internet. My phone showed no signal. I felt a twinge of panic. I needed to check my dashboard. I needed to see my sales. Deer touched my hand. She told me to relax. She said, "My Penrai, no problem. Enjoy the nature." Leck carried the bags. He threw them on the floor. He walked around the house like he owned it. He opened my whiskey. He took the biggest chair. The heat was suffocating. The fan on the ceiling spun slowly. It just moved the hot air around. I went to the porch. The noise of the jungle was deafening. Insects screamed in the trees. It sounded like a high-voltage wire. Deer came out. She looked worried. She said we had no food. We needed to go to the market in the town. It was 20 kilometers away. She said Leck would drive her, but they needed cash. She said she forgot her wallet in Bangkok. I was tired. The heat made my brain slow. I did not want to go to the market. I wanted to shower. I opened my wallet. I did not have enough cash. I pulled out my debit card. It was the black card, the one connected to my main business account. I handed it to her. I told her the PIN code. 1990. I told her to get cash and buy whatever we needed. I told her to buy more whiskey. She smiled. She looked like the angel again. She took the card. She touched my cheek. She told me I was good to her. They left. I sat on the porch alone. The darkness fell like a curtain. I listened to the truck fade away. I was alone in a strange house in a fruit plantation. I felt a cold stone form in my stomach. I waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. I went inside. I tried to find water. The tap sputtered brown liquid. I found a bottle of warm water in the fridge. I drank it. They came back 3 hours later. They were laughing. I heard them before I saw them. Deer walked in carrying plastic bags. She looked happy. Her cheeks were flushed. Leck followed her. He was carrying a case of beer. She handed me my card. She said, "Thank you." She said the machine was far away. She gave me a receipt for the groceries. I put the card back in my wallet. I did not look at it. I wanted a drink. We ate grilled chicken and sticky rice. The mood was strange. Leck was too loud. He spoke to Deer in rapid Thai. They laughed at things I did not understand. I felt like the outsider. I was the guest who had stayed too long. I went to my bag to get my laptop. Even without internet, I wanted to write some emails to send later. I opened the side pocket where I kept my wallet. I took it out. I wanted to check how much cash they had brought back. There was no change. I pulled out the card. I looked at it under the dim light of the bulb. It was a black card. It looked like mine, but the plastic felt different. The edges were peeling. I turned it over. The signature strip was blank. I looked closer at the name on the front. It was not my name. It said, Mr. Somchai. The blood drained from my face. My hands started to shake. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly on the wooden floor. "Dear," I said. My voice was tight. She was in the kitchen. She turned around. She was cutting a mango with a long knife. "Yes, darling?" she asked. "This is not my card," I said. "Where is my card?" She frowned. She walked over. She looked at the plastic in my hand. She shrugged. "Oh," she said. "Maybe I take the wrong one from the machine." The machine was confusing. "You have the PIN," I said. "You have my card. You have been gone for 3 hours." 3 hours. Enough time to drive to an ATM. Enough time to drain the daily limit. Enough time to transfer funds if they had access to the app. But they didn't have my phone. Wait. I patted my pocket. My phone was gone. I looked at the table where I had left it. Empty. I looked at Leck. He was sitting on the sofa. He was peeling the label off a beer bottle. He was smiling. He pulled my phone out of his pocket. He placed it on the table. "You looking for this?" he asked. His English was suddenly much better. The room spun. The heat felt like a physical weight crushing me. They played me like a fool. The innocent dancer, the shy cousin. It was all a performance, and I was the audience who paid for the ticket. "Give me my phone," I said. I tried to sound tough. I tried to sound like a CEO. Leck laughed. It was a dry, barking sound. He stood up. He was between me and the door. Deer put down the knife. She wiped her hands on a rag. She walked over to my bag. She pulled out the folder, the insurance folder. "Carter," she said. Her voice was not soft anymore. It was hard. It was flat. "We need to talk about your future." She opened the folder. She pulled out the beneficiary form. "You said you are worth more dead," she said. "We want to see if that is true." I looked at the window. Darkness, just the endless rows of trees. No neighbors, no police, just the insects screaming in the night. "I got cleaned out," I whispered. "You took the money. Just let me go." "Money is gone," Leck said. "We spent it, Sanuk. Now we need more." Deer placed a pen on the table. "Sign the paper," she said. "Change the name to me. Then we drive you to the airport. You go home. You learn a lesson." I knew it was a lie. If I signed that paper, I was a dead man. A tragic accident in the jungle. A tourist who got lost. I looked at the door. I looked at Leck. I looked at the knife on the table. I had to run. I did not think. I just moved. My body reacted before my brain could process the fear. I grabbed the bottle of whiskey from the table. I swung it in a wide arc. The glass connected with the side of Leck's head. It shattered. Amber liquid and shards of glass exploded in the air. He roared. He stumbled back. He wiped at his eyes. I bolted for the door. I hit the wooden porch and jumped. My feet slammed into the red dirt. I heard Deer screaming behind me. She sounded like a banshee. She was shouting in Thai. She was shouting for Leck to kill me. I ran into the trees. The plantation was a nightmare of shadows. The rows of fruit trees were perfectly straight, but in the dark they looked like cage bars. I tripped on a root. I scrambled up on my hands and knees. The mud was soft. It sucked at my shoes. I heard heavy boots hitting the ground behind me. Leck was coming. He was fast. He knew this land. I was just a tourist running blind in a maze. I cut left. I pushed through a wall of thick leaves. Branches whipped my face. Thorns tore at my shirt. I tasted blood in my mouth. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I needed a place to hide. I needed to disappear. I saw a concrete ridge ahead, a drainage ditch that ran under the service road. A large pipe opened into the darkness. It was half filled with black water. I did not hesitate. I slid down the bank. The smell hit me instantly. It smelled of sewage and chemical runoff. I crawled inside. The concrete was slime slick. I pulled myself deeper into the tube. The water soaked my jeans. It was cold and oily. Something brushed against my leg. Fur. Claws. A rat the size of a cat hissed in the dark. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop the scream. I lay still. I listened. The footsteps stopped on the road above. I heard Leck breathing. He was panting like a dog. He shone a flashlight beam around the area. The light cut across the opening of the pipe. I pressed myself into the sludge. I became part of the filth. "Farang," he shouted. "Come out. We just want to talk." He lied. His voice was thick with rage. He walked back and forth. Then I heard the truck engine start. He was going to circle the perimeter. He was going to hunt me down with the high beams. I waited until the engine noise faded. I crawled out the other side of the pipe. I was covered in black muck. I smelled like death. I stood up and tried to get my bearings. I saw a faint light in the distance. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe a road. I moved toward it. I walked for an hour. The jungle was relentless. The heat did not break. The humidity was a wet blanket wrapped around my lungs. I stepped into a clearing. The ground was disturbed here. Fresh earth. A spotlight hit me. It blinded me. I put my hand up. "Good boy," Leck said. He was sitting on the hood of the truck. He had turned the lights off and waited. He knew I would head for the gap in the trees. He had played this game before. He held a gun. It was an old revolver. Rust pitted the barrel, but it looked deadly enough. Deer stepped out of the cab. She held the folder. She looked at me with disgust. She wrinkled her nose at the smell coming off me. "You look dirty," she said. "Go clean up." She pointed to the fresh earth. "Dig," she said. Leck threw a shovel at my feet. It landed with a dull thud. I looked at the hole. It was already started. It was shallow but long. It was the size of a man. "Dig," Leck repeated. He cocked the hammer of the gun. The click was loud in the silence. I picked up the shovel. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I stepped into the depression. I drove the blade into the soil. It was heavy clay, red and sticky. I dug. I threw the dirt over my shoulder. Deer sat on a stump nearby. She used her phone as a light to read the papers. "You sign this," she said. "You make me beneficiary. Then you go. I promise. I just want security. I want to open a shop, a beauty clinic. I will be a good businesswoman." She was delusional. She was rewriting reality to fit her conscience. She needed to believe she was the victim. She needed to believe she was just taking what the rich foreigner owed her. "I cannot sign," I said. My voice was a croak. "My hands are dirty." "Dig," Leck said. I dug for hours. The hole got deeper. The pile of dirt grew higher. My blisters popped and bled. The handle of the shovel became slippery with blood and sweat. I thought about my life. I thought about the screens, the dropshipping store, the fake numbers, the fake validation. I thought about the cuckold videos I watched, the desire to be humiliated, the desire to give away my power. I had brought myself here. I had paid for the ticket. I had handed them the weapon. I was the architect of my own grave. The realization was cold and sharp. It cut through the panic. I stopped digging. I leaned on the shovel. I looked at Leck. He was relaxed. He was smoking a cigarette. He thought I was broken. He thought I was soft. He was right. I was soft. But even a worm turns when you step on it. "Deeper," he said. "Make it deep." "Why?" I asked. "So the dogs don't find me?" Deer looked up. Her face hardened. The mask slipped completely. "Because you talk too much," she said. "Sign the paper, or we put you in." She walked to the edge of the hole. She held the pen and the clipboard. She leaned down. "Do it, Carter. Be a good boy. Do it for me." She used the voice she used in the bedroom. The voice that made me weak. The voice that made me hand over my credit card. I looked at the pen. I looked at the gun in Leck's hand. He was looking at his phone. He was bored. I looked at the shovel. It was a tool. It was a weapon. I dipped the blade into the heavy red clay. I scooped up a massive load. I groaned as I lifted it. I pretended to struggle. I turned my back to them. Then I spun. I put every ounce of my frustration into the swing. I did not aim for the dirt pile. I aimed for Leck. The clod of heavy mud flew through the air. It was a solid mass. It hit him square in the face. It blinded him. He shouted. He flailed. The gun went off. A flash of orange fire. The bullet hit the tree next to my head. Bark exploded. I did not stop. I scrambled out of the hole. I was an animal. I swung the shovel like a baseball bat. Leck was wiping the mud from his eyes. He raised the gun again. I brought the shovel down. The metal blade hit his wrist. I heard the bone snap. It was a wet crunch. He screamed. The gun dropped into the mud. I kicked him in the chest. He went down hard. He curled into a ball. He was not a tiger anymore. He was just a man in pain. I turned to Deer. She was standing there. Her mouth was open. The papers fluttered to the ground. The pen fell into the dirt. She looked at Leck. Then she looked at me. She saw the blood on my hands. She saw the madness in my eyes. She did not run. She tried to play the card she always played. She fell to her knees. She put her hands together in a Y. She started to cry. "Carter," she sobbed. "He force me. Leck is bad man. He make me do it. Please, I love you. I want to be with you." It was a beautiful performance. It was better than the dance at the sanctuary. The tears looked real. The fear looked real. I stood over her. I held the shovel. I looked down at the woman I had wanted to worship, the woman I wanted to give everything to. I saw the greed. I saw the surgery she wanted. I saw the nose she hated. I saw the hollowness inside her that was just like the hollowness inside me. "You played me," I said. My voice was steady. "You cleaned me out." "No," she pleaded. "We can fix. We go Bangkok. I take care of you." I raised the shovel. She screamed. She covered her head. I swung it down. I smashed the side mirror of the pickup truck. Glass rained down on the dirt. I walked to the driver's side. The keys were in the ignition. I did not look at her again. I did not look at Leck writhing in the mud. I got in the truck. I started the engine. I put it in gear. I drove away. I left them in the dark with the hole I had dug. I drove until the gaslight came on. I left the truck at a bus station in Chonburi. I did not go to the police. I could not explain what happened. I could not explain the hole or the shovel. I was a Farang involved in a violent crime. The law would not be on my side. I took a bus to the airport. I used the last of the cash I found in the truck's glove box. I looked like a ghost. My clothes were stained with red clay and sewage. People moved away from me. Security guards watched me. I went to the embassy desk. I told them I was robbed. I told them I lost my passport. I did not tell them about the girl. They processed me. They gave me a temporary document. I called my sister in Ohio. She cried. She wired me money for a ticket. I sat in the terminal for 12 hours. I did not eat. I did not sleep. I watched the people. I watched the men arriving. They looked fresh. They looked excited. They wore singlets and carried backpacks. They were looking for adventure. They were looking for Sanuk. I wanted to warn them. I wanted to grab them and shake them. I wanted to tell them about the black water in the pipe. I wanted to tell them about the smile that hides the knife. But I said nothing. My throat was locked. The silence had taken hold of me. I boarded the plane. I sat in the window seat. As the aircraft taxied, I looked out at the tarmac. The heat shimmered off the concrete. The woman next to me was American. She was older. She smiled at me. "Rough trip?" she asked. I looked at her. I looked at her kind eyes. I did not answer. I turned my head and looked out the window. The plane lifted off. We rose above the smog. We rose above the golden temples and the neon streets. We rose above the plantations and the holes in the ground. I closed my eyes. I saw the shovel. I felt the weight of the clay. I was alive. I had my life. I had my breath. But Carter, the CEO, was dead. He died in that hole. The man sitting in seat 42A was someone else. I was a survivor. I was a stone. I would never speak of this. I would never say her name. I would never let anyone in again. The pilot announced our altitude. He said the flight time was 18 hours. 18 hours of silence. It was a good start.